My name is Candy Strahan, and I'm presenting my research on the effects of web-based instruction on reading comprehension of second grade students from different socioeconomic communities. And what I'll do, just to make it easier, socioeconomic communities, I'll just say SES. So, reading is so important in education, and the previous research shows that 90% of students in first grade that struggle in reading instruction continue to struggle throughout their educational careers. And so often they will end up never making it to being a proficient reader. Low socioeconomic status is an indicator of success in schools. Like if you have a school where they have higher numbers of free and reduced lunches, they oftentimes will have lower scores than schools that may do many of the same things that they do, but have students less of a lower rate of free and reduced lunches. The Matthew effect is a name given by Kay Stanovich about the socioeconomic differences, and it originally came from the Bible, like where the rich get rich, the poor get poor. But it's where students that succeed, they keep succeeding and they grow. But the students that are struggling continue to struggle and don't show any growth. And then one thing linked in with the research too was the vocabulary deficit of kids from low SES communities. They'll start kindergarten or first grade with a vocabulary deficit of like 5,000 to 10,000 words, where a student from a higher SES community will start, and their like vocabulary and their speaking is just worlds different than the students from the low SES communities. The research is needed because in our classrooms, technology is playing a bigger part, and we have expectations, like we have different programs that the students are expected to be on for a certain amount of time each week. And so if we're losing that face-to-face time with the student, then we need to be sure that what the time that they are using on the computer is a worthwhile use of that time. What we use is iReady. It's a web-based instructional program. It's adaptive, so each student that gets on it, it gives them a pre-assessment and it puts them exactly where they need to be. And so then we have to spend 45 minutes on it each week, and we have to monitor that. We have to make sure that everybody's done their lessons and that they have their 45 minutes, and we do that the same way across the district. And the purpose of the study is to determine if we have two different schools, and if we do everything the same as far as the iReady program is concerned, if we give a pre-assessment and a post-assessment, will they grow the same? Not to where they'll be equal, but to where they each have the same amount of growth. And I used Renaissance STAR as the pre-assessment and the post-assessment. And so my question is, how reading comprehension growth is demonstrated by second grade students in iReady differs between two schools from different socioeconomic communities. And my hypothesis is that the school with the higher rate of free and reduced lunches, they are not going to grow as well as the school with fewer free and reduced lunches. And the reason that that's my hypothesis is because so far, all the research that I've read is that's what that shows. So it's a quantitative study. I used their reading comprehension scores from everybody. I had 3 classrooms at my school, and my school, the free and reduced lunch rate is 62%, and then there's another school, and their free and reduced lunch rate is 95%. And so I sent home a permission slip with everyone, and I got 30 back from one school and 30 back from the other school. Had to have 60. And so the students, everybody had to take a STAR test because we were doing our end of the year assessments anyway. So everybody took the STAR test, and then we recorded that data, and we continued with iReady as usual. And we all do that the same way. Like we said, they have to do the 45 minutes. They we're all trained to like monitor their instruction and conference with the students, and if they're stuck, how to help them get unstuck. And so we just kept doing that just as normal as time went on. And we started the week of April 17th testing, and then we finished testing that week, the STAR, and then did iReady for the next 3 or 4 weeks, and then we did the final STAR test. We did convenience sampling because I teach at one of the schools, and we use schools inside my district. And I already talked about the socioeconomic differences between the schools. There were 30 from each school. And at the end, we made sure at the beginning, at the end, and the end, that we both tested the same way, that we either tested in the computer lab with a proctor or in the classroom with a proctor. And iReady, we did it computer lab or the classroom. We just kind of kept doing that the way we've been doing it all year. The results, School 1 is the school with the 95% free and reduced lunch rate. School 2 is the school with 62% free and reduced lunches. Took the mean score, and this shows it better here. If I could show you here, but School 1, the blue for School 1 and 2 shows their initial score, and so School 1 is the school with a higher rate of free and reduced lunches. So the mean score of School 1 was 253, and they use a scaled score. And a scaled score, it takes, there's 34 questions in the STAR test, and it rates each question and each answer. So we took the average of that, and so 253 for that school and 311 for school number 2. So already we're starting, and so far the previous research is true because their score is lower than the score here. And so at the end of the study, we did it again, and the post-assessment mean score was 253 at School 1 and 332 at School 2. The highest score pre-assessment for School 1 was 490, and at the end, they did have a student that scored 519. Lowest score was 112 and then 88. And then the range between the highest and the lowest, 378 scaled score and 431 here. And then School 2, 311 pre and 332 post-assessment. The highest score here was a 605 in the pre-assessment and 613 in the post-assessment. 69 was the low score both times. And then the range was 536 from the lowest to the highest, and then 544. And then over here, it shows, the pre-assessment, School 1, which is the school with the higher rate of free and reduced lunches, they went down. And then School 2, they grew. They went down 13 points in this group here. Grew 20-something points. 20-something points. So here's that right there. So then we're going to flip over here, because what I really thought was interesting was the gap. It does continue to widen. Like this was the pre-assessment, School 1, and you can see the difference right there. But then School 2, they went down at the post-assessment, and School 1, it went up. So the gap, it did continue to widen. So my data agreed with previous data that I've read that the schools with less students with free and reduced lunches have the higher scores and can, in the end, even grew even more. The difference in each school's mean scale score from the pre-assessment was 58, and the post-assessment was 92. So the difference here is 58, and then it grew to 92. Both schools, I talked about how we're both trained to monitor through iReady and how we continued it as normal. And then I did wonder if there are things that we didn't specify for my study that maybe each teacher does different that we don't talk about, and if that could have maybe played a part in it. whether, they track progress like on a wall, or whether they goal set for each student or as a whole. Limitations and implications for future research. My research began pretty much during our big testing time of the school year. So when we took that first STAR assessment for the beginning of my study, it was the last STAR assessment for second graders. And so they were pumped for that. They knew this was the last one, that we needed to show some growth. And so they all worked hard and did super well on that. And we felt like that might have affected the last test that we took that third week of May, because it was hard to get them to focus and take their time and read it carefully. They thought at that point, well, we've already taken our tests, we're done. And the study was only 4 weeks long because of the school year coming to an end, and that affected results too. And the limited sample size, I would have gotten better data if I'd have had more students or more schools even participating. The educational implications. We do our tracking beginning, middle, and end of the school year. It would be interesting to start with the research in the beginning of the year and start when we assess everybody anyway to know where they are to start. So just to track it that way and track it all year long, and do grades as a whole and compare them that way, and we'd have better data to tell us, to be able to answer some of our questions. And further research is necessary to determine the connection between web-based adaptive instruction and whether it's truly helpful for everyone across the board. Is it just as helpful for the different SES backgrounds? We'd have to do more research in order to better answer that. Thank you.
Yay! Any questions?
Do you have any questions? Yes.
What is your opinion of the web-based instruction? Do you as a teaching professional, do you see its benefits, or how do you think it affects students, educationally?
I was wondering the same thing. Or do you think more, teacher-student interaction would be better?
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the socioeconomic status. Some with the lower economic status might need that more one-on-one attention, and they play a role in it.
Well, and I do think that it's great when it's adaptive and it can reach them at their level, especially if they'll truly focus in on it and it can help them meet some of the gaps. It's hard because they're all on truly so many different levels, so it is good to help differentiate their instruction, to be sure that they're not missing what they need. We worry about having to cut out that much time of instruction, counting, on this web program. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to study it, was to see how the growth would compare across. And I would love to see something, if it was done longer, to see if it really, on their website, on the iReady website, it does show that it does great things. Yes.
Is the iReady something they do at home?
They can do it at home.
Can. Okay. And so then my question becomes, if you're dealing with two different socioeconomic communities, the ones on the lower end may not have as good a computers, may not have a computer,
Right.
may not have access to fast internet, and that can affect the programs.
Mhm.
Even if they've got it and it's not as high quality, it becomes choppy and difficult to use.
Right.
And have you considered whether or not that plays a factor in the usefulness of the program?
Well, and that's a really good question, because you can go in and see if that student's been on there at home, but I don't think it plays into the 45 minutes, but it would be interesting to see the students that do go and do the work at home and compare their scores to students that don't.
Did I answer your question there?
Yeah, you did.
Anything else?